Brian here with the Edge Pro. Going to talk about clipper repair and a common question that we get a lot, whether or not you're a repair person or an end user trying to figure out why your clipper isn't working. When we talk about battery tools these days, and it's not necessarily specific to a particular brand or particular model, what we find is that a lot of times clippers present the same problems, the same symptoms, but they have different problems. And so unless we actually have the clipper in our hands, it's very difficult for us to determine what parts that clipper may need. And because of the technology that goes into clippers these days with circuitry, without being an engineer and understanding how the circuit board is supposed to work for that individual tool and having sophisticated equipment to look into that, the simplest way to figure out which parts the clipper needs, in a lot of cases on battery tools particularly, is to literally swap out. I think it's the battery, so I put in a new battery. If the problem went away, I found my problem. If it didn't, then I move on to the next part. And we try different parts until we find the right combination of parts fit to make that clipper work properly. So I've got a couple of examples today, and just wanted you to be able to see it's again, this isn't brand specific, this isn't model specific sort of thing. It can be all over the board, but I happen to have a couple of these recently, and so I thought it'd be a great opportunity to show you some real life examples of what problems do exist, and then how we go about determining which one of these parts it is that we replace. So we're going to take a look here first at a couple of clippers. So these are Oster Octane. Again, the exact brand, exact model isn't really specific, but if you're looking at this content for other information, these clippers are basically the same as an Oster Volt. It's also basically the same as a Heiniger Sapphire. So they're all the same clipper, all take the same components, but these are both Oster Octanes. And these clippers, they both present exactly the same problem. When you turn them on, they start for a second, and that's it. So the question comes, what's wrong with them? What do I need to do to fix it? What parts do I need to buy to repair them? So with any battery tool, usually my starting point is to grab a fresh battery, just verify if the battery, if that solves the problem. I've gone through these, and so I know what the problem is ahead of time. But I can tell you, I did check that. The batteries seem to be just fine, still presented the same problem. So then from there, we look inside. And so inside we have circuit boards on both, and we have motors on both. And so what do I think this problem is? And so on this particular tool, and I would say just by the numbers, percentage-wise, when it presents this symptom, it's more likely that the problem with this clipper is the motor. So that's going to be, maybe my starting point. I'm like, yeah, I think it's probably the motor. Some telltale signs, perhaps, that it's got a lot of black soot, dust from the brushes, that sort of thing on the motor there itself. So that certainly, says maybe there's something going on there. So I'm curious if this motor is any good. And so the simplest thing for me to do is to literally put in a brand new motor and see if it fixes the problem. On this particular tool, it does disassemble relatively easily. Then put it back together. Get our cover back on. The switch is actually integrated into the cover, so we put that back on. And with a brand new motor, clipper functions perfect. This is what we want. So that would lead us down this thought process. Here I have another clipper presented exactly the same problem. I think it's the motor. So quite frankly, the very first thing I did with this clipper was I put a new motor in it. The problem is the motor didn't fix the problem. It presented exactly the same way. So in that case, what I actually did was I took the new motor out, I put the old motor back in. And I thought, well, maybe it's the circuit board. So I put a new circuit board in. And once again, with a new circuit board and the original motor, the tool now functions just like it should. So again, it's difficult to know exactly what's wrong with the tool unless you have it in your hands and unless you have these parts on hand. This is a benefit of being a repair center like we are. We have a good inventory of these parts, so we're able to change this out, and I'm not at all charging the customer for a motor and a circuit board only to find out that it needs one part. I'm only charging for the parts I actually put into it, and I save the rest of my parts for the next customer down the road. You know, if you're trying to repair your own tool, that makes it challenging. That's one of the reasons you might want to consider sending that in to somebody who does have an inventory of these parts, who can diagnose that the same way. In a similar light, different clipper, kind of a similar situation, that we have an Andis Pulse ZR2 here. These are both, again, basically the same type of clipper here, and they both have a similar sort of problem. You can turn them on, however, like it shut off there, or if you put a blade on there, it wants to stop kind of instantly. This one was kind of the same way, but when you put a blade on it, and if it was a gummy blade or anything like that, it would actually stall. A lot of times the light would change colors like that. And then it's running yellow from there. So again, we're having perhaps a similar, not identical issue, but a similar sort of thing. And so my question is, well, what could it be? I have motor, battery, and circuit board at my disposal. Which one could it be? And so the very first thing that I double check is, well, let's see about the battery. So I take the battery out. This battery, for instance, has this nice little green light on it. Green light. Green light obviously means it's good. Unfortunately, that's not true. Green light makes you feel good. It really doesn't mean anything. A red light means it's bad, but a green light really doesn't mean that it's good. I realize that's contrary to thought, but it is reality. And so I take a brand new battery that I've charged, put that on the tool. Yeah, I'm still having some issues here, not going on. So it's not the battery. So then I'm gonna look into putting a motor in here and testing that with the original battery, seeing what's going on there. Again, this tool was presenting similar problems. I actually changed the battery and all. That wasn't fixing the issue, so went ahead and changed out the motor and got good results. So again, it's not specific to brands, not specific to model, but as you're dealing with particularly battery tools, it's very difficult to simply look at a tool and say, yeah, this is the problem. But if you have the parts on hand, you have the knowledge as to how those parts go together, you can diagnose and you can determine which pieces those tools need. So hope this information was helpful. You know, if you're doing repair work yourself, hopefully you found that beneficial to know maybe a thought process to follow down when you have a clipper that's not working. And if you're an end user and you've got a tool that isn't working, hopefully this will help you kind of understand the process that it takes to repair that. And you know, unless you really feel confident and want to invest in buying parts and trying this out, you're probably better off sending it to somebody who can repair that for you. Sure, you're going to pay a little labor for somebody to do that, but you're not going to have to buy a bunch of parts that you don't necessarily need. So hope that was beneficial for you, and we'll see you guys on the next video.